So today, the only thing that I wanted to cover was to introduce the next assignment. Since a number of you have finished the beat scene, what you need to do now is to move on to the mask assignment. And there's any number of ways that you can approach that. It can look realistic, it can look stylized, it can look two-dimensional and graphic. Whatever direction you want to take is fine by me. The other thing that is that it can be based on a sketch that you've made. It can be based on a photograph. It can be based on any number of things. You can get photographs from the web, and let me show you some different techniques that you can follow here. Okay, so here let's look at my website first, and let's look at some of these, and you can see significant difference. If you look at this one, this looks really nice. I mean, the focus was on the mask, but notice that she took a photographic image of herself behind it, and really took a lot of time in Illustrator to make these intricate patterns that go behind it to add to the design. They become an integral part of the piece. Really very, very nice. By contrast, look at this one. Very flat, two-dimensional graphic. But again, really intriguing. Probably based on an existing mask from don't know what culture. And that's okay. Okay. Here's another one. It's a little bit more photographic. This one is more illustrative. It's done really, really well. It's the same. So you can see that with the few examples that I've shown you, they can go on any number of different. Really very nice. I usually have tons of them. When I show samples here, I get to those 3 or 4. Okay, but it's a good range of possibilities. So this is what you do, or what you can do. There's one. Actually, let me bring this back up for a minute. Command New for new window. And I'm going to do a Google search. This is one way to find an image. Lots of different ways. I'm just going to type in the word masks. It brings up face masks and masks from around the world or whatever. Well, I just want to look at images. And you'll see you have lots of different kinds. Now, to download one of these, just click on it, and then also look to see the full-size image. And they typically will be GIFs or PNGs. And this would be a good one. Okay? And I've already downloaded this from another day. So notice that I have this one here. To download it, you can right-click or control-click, and it gives you these options in this flyout window. You can do Save Image As, and that will allow you to save it on your flash drive. Or if you want, you can add it to the iPhoto library, and then once it's in the library, you can take it and you can save it to your flash drive. But make sure whatever images you do use or you think you're going to want to use, save them on your flash drive so you have them as backup. Okay? So that's one way of getting them from the internet. The other way would be when I gave you the scanning demonstration. You can scan from a book, scan from a magazine, scan from one of your own images. Okay. The next step is to open up a brand new file, an empty document in Illustrator. Takes a minute to open up the application. Should have already had it open, but oh well. Very slow. Oh well. It's okay. I'm going to go ahead and create a brand new print document. Just use the default settings. Let me go ahead and title it Mask. Okay. There we go. Okay, this is what I recommend that you do. Is that you import a copy and you put it on a layer and you lock it and you leave it alone. That can be used as a template. It can also be that you can use the trace on top of, or we can use the auto trace feature, and that will enable you to combine both the elements of the photograph with elements of the drawn image that you're going to make. So again, depending on the approach you want to take, there's lots of different ways to go. It really depends on how comfortable you feel with drawing. Okay? So the first thing I need to do is go to File, Import, or actually it's Place. And I'm going to go back to the desktop where I have that image saved. Here's the Indian masks. I'm going to go ahead and place it. It's a nice size. It can be bigger. Doesn't have to be, you can stretch it and make it bigger if you want. I'm going to leave it at this size. One thing that I need to mention, though, that I didn't do is I'm going to undo this and I'm going to place it one more time because there's something important that you should make note of. When I select the mask, at the bottom, it has something that looks really kind of secondary, unimportant, but it will be really important for you. Notice it says link. And if I deselect it, that doesn't mean it's not going to put it in there, but there's an important difference. If I check link, what it does is it imports only a screen image of that, a screen version of that image. The actual image is linked to the file, I mean it's connected. It has to be, every time you open this Illustrator file, it looks for it. And if you move that file that you got from the web someplace else in another folder, or you delete it, it will give you an error message. It'll say it can't find it. What happened to it? The other approach, if that's problematic, and that means when you burn the CD with your file on it, and you want to include that, you need to make sure that this image is also in that CD as well. Now, if you want to just forget about that and you don't mind having a larger file size, then you deselect this, and then what it does is it embeds it in the Illustrator file. So wherever the Illustrator file goes now, this image goes as well. Does that make sense to everybody? There's a difference between linking and embedding. When you embed, it becomes a permanent part of the file until you delete it. When you link it, you always need that file that you imported next to the Illustrator file, wherever it's saved. Okay? You can't do without it. So in this particular instance, I'm going to go ahead and deselect it so it's embedded. And I have it in here. But it automatically places it in the center, and you can move it about, but I don't recommend that you do that. What I do recommend that you do is that if you plan on using the pen tool, using other shapes, and combining various techniques to draw on top of this, this is the approach that I recommend that you take. That you turn this layer into a template. Now, what does that mean? If I double click on the layer, it brings up this dialog box. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn on this box that says template. And when you do that, it turns off and on all these other checkboxes. It turns off print, it locks it, and it dims the image to 50% by default. So what happens as soon as I click OK is that it's going to look like an image that's placed under a piece of tracing paper that looks slightly dimmed, but you can see enough detail through it that you can draw on top of it. And that's exactly what's going on here. So if I turn and I rename this template, and I click OK, notice how it slightly dimmed it. Also look at the layer. I've renamed it. Also notice how it's locked. And now notice that when I bring the cursor on top, I get this pencil mark with the strike through, meaning I cannot draw on this. And that's something that you want to be. You don't want to draw on this by accident. You want to draw on a layer on top of it. So how do you do that? we go ahead down here with layers visible. Let me go ahead and pull this up so you can see. Here's our template layer. I'm going to draw, just as you would on a blank sheet of tracing paper on top of it, I'm going to create a brand new layer on top of it, and let's rename this Drawing. And you can have as many layers on top of this as you want. I will cover layers on Tuesday. So that exercise I will cover then. Okay? This one you want to be editable. So don't lock it yet until you're ready to move on. But now what I can do on top here, you can work with a brush tool, you can work with a pen tool, and you can proceed to, draw around this and create your own illustration. You can, work and, draw the little pieces of straw back here with a brush tool. I can work with a pen tool, and I can trace, all of these shapes we did, similar to what you did with the the last piece that we just, or the one piece that we just finished, which is the beach scene. Okay, not a very good job of tracing it, but get the basic idea. You use that as a guide, and it won't print. You can turn it off if you wish. With layers visible, I can always turn off the visibility and just look at what I've drawn, and then turn it back on as you're developing your piece. So that's one approach. And typically, this will look a little bit more stylized. If we look at the examples again, this would be a good example of that style of illustration, where they started with a photograph, they used whatever tools that were available to them, and drew on top of it. Okay. Now, here's another approach. So let's go back to here again. And I'm going to go to Layers, and I'm going to turn this back into a regular layer, and we'll just call it Photo. So this will print now, this will show, this will preview. I click OK, it goes back. Now what I need to do, and what I should have done before doing that, is get rid of the drawing that I had before. So let's get rid of some of these things that I drew. Okay, so maybe I want to include part of the drawn image, or the photographic image, and I want to convert some of the image into vector graphics. And I want to make sure that they're perfectly aligned with one another and perfectly the same size. So what do I do? I need to make a copy of this. So to make a copy of this layer with everything in place, I click on it, I drag down to this icon that makes a copy of it. Now I can take the bottom layer and I can click on the center icon here in the middle here next to the eye and lock it, so I don't accidentally draw on it. Now we work to the photo layer, we select it. Now I can use Live Trace. So one of the things that I might want to do is select 16 colors. To simplify things, I'm just going to use 6 colors. It traces it for me. I have the option now of leaving it as is and using Live Paint, or expanding it, which isn't a bad approach. It converts it into vector graphics, which is, it already did that, but now you see all the individual shapes, and it converts it into, or turns it into a group. So if I want to select individual parts of this and start to delete them, change the colors of them, transform them using the pen tool, any tools that are available to me, I have to either ungroup it, or I need to select the group selection tool within this. And notice it selects more than really what I want. If I select delete, whoops, select this again. Oh, I got to turn off the back layer. There we go. Turn off the visibility. See how it deleted parts of the black that I didn't want deleted? So you need to be careful when you do that. There are ways of coming back here, and we can use these tools down here underneath the eraser tool. We can use the scissors tool and the knife tool. And we can zoom in here at various parts, and when I select with the group selection tool, select this back part. Let me go back again, make sure that I have this. Let's turn that off. There we go. I'm going to undo. Let's turn this off. There we go. So now I select this, and you can see that this traces around. So let's start. I want to leave this part intact in here. So what can I do to eliminate this part in here or to cut it? I can use, for example, down here, I can use the knife tool. And I can click here. Or actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to use the scissors tool. Never mind. I'm going to click here to cut it. And I wanted to click here. So now that I have that done, I'm goofing this up, huh? Wait a minute, there we go. Because this is selected all the way around. Let me undo this one more time. Let me see this. Select this. Oh, come on. There we go. So I want to connect from here, disconnect from here to here. So let's undo that again. Okay, so I have my scissors tool. I click here, and now I go ahead and I select this one here, down here, and I want to, notice because I selected this background part, and I want to disconnect this. So I select the scissors again. Here, wait a minute. Let me try again. Let me do this. I want to select this and see what I have. Okay, let's do this again. Okay, well, let me try doing this. I'm kind of goofing up here a little bit. Let's try to disconnect that. Okay, now let's work down here. Let's disconnect that. You have to be careful while doing all of this. But now I select down here, and this part, I want to disconnect this part here, and I'm going to reconnect them in a moment. You'll see. All right, select this now. That disconnects that. Okay, now notice what happens. Notice that I have a shape, or had one a moment ago. Oh, come on. Maybe I need to reconnect now. Oh, never mind. There we go. Did I do it right? No, they're still connected, huh? Maybe it would be better if I turned off parts of this. Because what I need to do, here, let me try a different way of doing this. I'm going to select this, and I'm going to lock all of the rest of it. So I'm thinking here, because this shows this is a group. Let's see all the shapes that we have in here. Lots and lots and lots of shapes. And this was just with a handful of colors here. Oh, come on. Let's look at layers again. Why aren't you selected? Come on. Just shows the group selected. There should be a path in here that's selected as well. You know what? Let me go ahead and let's try to do this quickly. I'm going to switch from the knife tool. I'm going to cut across here, and then I'm going to cut across here, and I'm hoping that when I'm done now, I select this tool. Okay, I cut it into more shapes than what I want, but notice how I've isolated this now. So now when I select from here, and I delete it, it leaves that part intact. So all the parts that were joined together that you want to separate now, you'd have to do that to leave them inside. So let's say, for example, I want to get rid of this, or I want to get rid of a part of this, and I want to reveal something else, or part of this that is the photograph from inside. So maybe I want to get rid of all of this, and I want this to look more photographic. I don't want it to look like it is been changed to vector graphics. So I'll select all of this and delete it, and I'll just leave that for the time being. And now what I can do is watch what happens when I go back to layers. Let's twirl this back up. Oh, come on. want, oh, I see what I did. I'm in isolation mode. There we go. We'll have to talk about that on another day too. Now when I turn that back on, notice that some of the photograph comes back in, but look at how the bottom part of the wheat looks more photographic and less stylized than the top part. So I'm allowing part of that photograph that I had saved underneath to be revealed. Okay, so that yet is another way to work. That you can allow some of the photograph to show through. You can hide all of it, delete all of it when you're done. It's up to you, but that gives you that flexibility. Okay? So this is the next assignment. Try to finish as soon as you can the beach scene, print it, turn on the printer. Anybody going to print today? Okay, we'll get you going. Make sure that you burn it on a CD first. We have blank CDs, we have cases. Print it, put it in a manila envelope, and I'll get them graded this weekend, okay? Any questions about this assignment? The handout is also on my website, Kirk's Classes. Whoops. Where did I go here? Let's go back here. Let's go back to handouts. And if we select the Adobe Illustrator class, we already did the beach scene. When you click on masks, you can download that and you can look at that. Show you the handout for that. Okay? Any questions? This next Tuesday, I will cover layers. I covered type Tuesday and last Thursday. I will cover layers next week. Show you how you can use layers. I've already used them a little bit today. Putting the template on one layer, putting the photo on one layer, and a drawing on a separate layer. Okay, rather than combine them all into one single layer. By isolating them, parts of your illustration on different layers, it will help you to organize it and to select parts. The way they've handling it a little bit now, though, something that I had forgotten about that is pretty effective, is that they have an isolation mode. And it's relatively new, but it's kind of neat. You'll notice that some of these elements, when we go ahead in here, and let me go back to, I want to make sure that the photocopy is selected. And when I select this, this shows as a group. And when I double click on part of it, or any part that's selected here, it changes, and you can see that we're inside a group, something called a group, and this is called the isolation mode. Now I can select all these individual elements. I can edit their color, I can use the pen tool, do whatever I want with it. And I'm working inside that container that we call a group. And then when I'm ready to go back out and have it locked down again. So for example, let me go ahead. I have this shape selected. Let's go back in. And in the group, I select this. I decide, you know what, I want it green now instead. Now when I go back outside of the group, notice that it stays put. It's still all part of the group, but it allowed me to isolate it for that moment, to make revisions to it, and then go back outside the group. And it remains locked down. It remains as a multiple images, but as in a container that we call a group that makes them work as one unit. Okay? So that is our next assignment. We'll have like 3 or 4 weeks to work on that. After the mask assignment, you'll have a number of options available to you. There will probably be 3 different assignments that you'll only be required to do one, but you'll have different options. You'll be able to do a product, you'll be able to do a portrait, you'll be able to do, there's what I call a Tokidoki assignment, which you can actually turn in, and if you're interested in designing t-shirts or skateboard graphics or that sort of thing, you'll be able to do that. Okay? That seems to be a favorite for people. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with Tokidoki. Anybody familiar with Simon Lanyo? His illustrations look like he's Japanese and he's from Japan, but the guy's Italian and he works in the United States now, so go figure that one out. His stuff is on all sorts of stuff. It's on skateboard decks, it's on purses. There are these little characters that are manufactured that he makes. They're on t-shirts, they're on little tchotchke ring holders, all kinds of stuff. And we'll watch some video of him show his process for making his work, and I think that's inspirational, and that will help you to, develop whatever it is that you want to with this program. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this off.